putting you in the middle.
I think we did that wrong. Supposed to be here.
Did we mess it up?
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure we did.
That'll be okay. Well, so maybe just kind of to start, if each of you guys want to introduce yourselves and spend a moment to talk a little bit about just kind of what you're working on from a responsibility perspective, and then we can dig in further. You want to start?
Soumit, Nandi, Managing Director for Customer Technology Platforms. So I'm responsible for flight shopping, booking, payments, and your travel experience. I do not manage the channels. I sort of sit behind it in everything. We are sort of reinventing what travel really means and what it is going to mean for each and every one of you in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Richard Entrup. I'm the Global CIO at Christie's, the auction house. I have responsibility for all things technology as well as digital and emerging technology.
Ishit, Vachhrajani. We are here to keep you guys awake after lunch.
So Saqib mentioned earlier the death vacuum that's related to startups that kind of fail. We are in the death vacuum of the panel that is right after lunch.
Right.
So feel free to have another cup of coffee and do whatever you need to do to stay awake.
But after the session.
But not now. Stay here. Stay here.
Chief Technology Officer for A&E Networks. History, lifetime, if you enjoy those channels, keep watching them. I'm responsible for enterprise technology, all of infrastructure, cybersecurity, enterprise products, applications, as well as data analytics.
So here's why this panel is actually cool. At the core, we're talking about 3 very different companies, but all are faced with the same problem and the same challenge in a different way. If I think of United as an organization, certainly been around for a decent amount of time. I think obviously maybe not quite to the extent that Christie's has been around. I don't know if anybody knows. Christie's was actually founded in 1766. So the digital process for that company, I think back then was, probably more advanced than most now. However, if you think of kind of this transformation and journey, right? United, the paper tickets, right? From an actual kind of customer-facing side, what are you doing in order to take this digital transformation? What is digital transformation for United?
Yeah, I was literally just asking him if he remembers the paper ticket. So one of the wonderful things that we have done over the last 30 years is we have taken an extremely manual process and automated the heck out of it. You used to call for a reservation, and since there was no such thing as an online payment, you actually had to go to a ticket office and give them money, and maybe they give you a cup of coffee if it was first class. And then you got a booklet of tickets, coupons, and you went to the airport and you gave them a coupon. And we've done a spectacular job, terrific job of automating that. That is not what digital is today. So I'll give you a couple of data points. So we have 48% of our revenue comes from our digital properties. It's about $15 billion. If you just take the United mobile app, that's $1 billion business for us. Just the United mobile app, it would be one of the world's largest 1,000 companies. If you look at how you search for flights today, you want to go from Chicago to New York or New York to San Francisco, sometimes you do not need 300 flight search results. We do a lot of work. We know exactly what flights you're likely to buy. We know 10% of you come to United.com and book the same itinerary with just a different date. We know 83% of you will always book the lowest fare. We know 70% of somebody who's searching for a first-class fare will book the highest fare. Why don't we just tell you, we believe this is the flight you were looking for? So it's something as simple as that.
So for you, it's really about knowing the customer. I mean, that's kind of the digital transformation journey, right?
So that's one.
Okay.
But it also goes deep. If you look at the travel ecosystem, a hotel doesn't give you a PNR and a ticket. So if you think about a world, an ecosystem, where we put the customer at the center and simplify how they sort of book travel, how can we change our back office systems as well to make it really Amazon-like? So it exists very easily in the
customer centricity is really the core 100%. Of digital transformation. And I wonder, because obviously I think A&E as an organization been around for 30 odd years. Obviously there's been a big market shift, right? And I think one of the things that's really about becoming a digital enterprise is this recognition that the way we do business today is fundamentally needs to be different than the way that businesses were created, whether it was 300 years ago or was created 30 years ago, regardless. The internet wasn't around in either of those cases. And I think with media and television, there's been a marked shift and change in that as well. So maybe you can share a little bit of, from the A&E side, what are you doing to evolve? What does digital transformation mean within your organization, and how are you helping them keep up?
Sure. So I think in some ways, when people talk about digital transformation, I'm really not a big fan of that word, because I think there's nothing else that, especially in this room, that we are all working on that is not part of a digital transformation in some ways. Because it's pretty much all encompassing from having consumer at the center, all of the technologies that are now accessible in some ways to a wide variety of enterprises. And you don't need to spend a tremendous amount of money to really move the needle. And I think that accessibility of technology, so service-based AI services, machine learning, you really don't need a lot of expertise, or you're basically lowering the bar of entry. So the way we look at it is, from a consumer standpoint, we want to be wherever the consumer is. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room consumed some form of content on their way to this conference, or maybe you're doing it right now. In that case, please stop. So we want to make sure that we are reaching the consumer wherever they are in the best and easiest possible way. And that's across all devices, across your living room, on the train, wherever you are on whatever device that you're looking at it. But to allow for that, we also have to figure out the enterprise and how enterprise is changing across the board as well. And that's where I think it comes down to sort of automation and efficiencies, which is somewhat low-hanging fruit across digital enterprise. But then also looking at optimization, personalizing the content better, giving you recommendation, keeping you in there once you walk in the door.
So there's still a flavor of customer centricity, but I think whereas kind of with your model, it's putting the customer at the center. It feels like what you're really talking about is making the content as available for anyone at any time as possible. So it's almost kind of putting the content in the center and allowing that access.
Because that is our core product. So
Sure.
really, it is the content that is at the center, but how do we make it easier for you to buy, consume, interact, and use more of what we have?
So, Rich, obviously A&E and also United caters to millions of customers, and I feel like Christie's caters to customers who have millions.
Billions.
Right? Sure. Maybe if you could take a moment and let us know, if I think of 1766 as a starting point for an organization, you probably have a couple of opportunities for modernization, digitalization, and transformation, but there's probably also a cultural resistance to these types of things, right? So maybe the smartest thing is not to give your billionaire customers this access to an app or a chat bot or something like that, but what are you dealing with, and what is digital transformation for Christie's?
So I think both gentlemen hit on it. I think it's about customer experience ultimately. So yes, we have low volume clients, but very high net worth clients. So the experience is definitely still very analog, if you will. The average demographic of people buying $100 million paintings tends to be, over a certain demo. So for sure, but there is an up and coming different client demo that we're targeting right now, and the only way to contact those folks is digitally. The fact is we attract 30% of our net new clients through the digital experience, whether it's our mobile app or our website. We also have something called Christie's Live, which lets you participate in a physical auction over the internet, which was transformational. And we also do online sales, online-only sales. So those elements of digital products have, I think, transformed the business in reach. Ishit mentioned customers and reaching new customers and retaining new customers. I think this is still very much about business, and that digital transformation term tends to confuse things. It's about retaining existing clients, it's about attracting new ones, and it's about creating the most positive, sticky experience, if you will, so they stay with you and they want to consume more. So I think digital has the opportunity to, again, attract net new and retain existing clients.
So maybe a question for each of you kind of across the board. What is preventing, or what are the hurdles to digital transformation? And I know you don't like that word, Ishit, but what are the hurdles to becoming a more digital enterprise within your organizations?
I think what is logical is not always, you would think and say, well, this is a 17-step process, extremely inefficient. It's a no-brainer, right? This is why is there a resistance? And I think a lot of us, especially from a technology standpoint, think like that. But it's underestimating the learning curve, and the change is significant. I think just the familiarity with certain way of doing things, conducting businesses and process is tremendous. And I think that's where a lot of effort has to be focused on truly optimizing the process and change management. And that would make the digital transformation much more successful. You will be surprised how many times, even when you try to automate something as simple as paper-based expense report, the kind of resistance that you will face. And that sort of, if you multiply that to some of the revenue-centric processes, that resistance is significant in that case.
I think it's been a challenge for technology before digital, right? To get adoption and really provide business value. If you're building great products internally or externally that your clients want to use, then there'll be adoption and it'll be a success. IT driving anything just doesn't work. You can't build and hope they'll come. I think you need to be fully engaged with your clients, whether they're internal or external. You need to build in an agile, great experience, and they'll consume it. So I think the same metrics apply.
And is that what you're doing at Christie's?
Absolutely. So we're in the process of an agile transformation, is that word again. We're moving from a complete open source, full stack, agile development. We've already developed several internal apps in weeks, not months. And the CEO is ecstatic with the results of that. And that'll soon transcend itself into external experiences. We're doing AR right now. So we're trying to dabble with the new AR kit from Apple, which is no cost, actually. It didn't cost us anything to build this. And there's been a couple of, Mashable just released it yesterday. We're allowing you to put art on your wall and see what it looks like. So it's engagement. It's not revenue generating, but
Sure.
It's engagement. It's showing some digital savviness to a 250-year-old company.
Sure.
And I think we have a long way to go, but the opportunity is definitely there. The brand is great.
Cool.
I'll add to that maybe two concrete examples. One is industry standards. So I think the shift from those industry standards to platforms and APIs, that has to happen. And I would argue that a lot of those industry standards have kind of held us back. The second example I would provide is in our digital delivery center in Chicago, we do a lot of test and learn. And we give these digital pods a lot of empowerment to do those things. Some experiments go well, some experiments don't go well. By changing colors and graphics and the text of two bundles, we can influence conversion and behavior. And I think the ability of an organization that's focused on making money to allow those experiments to happen, that takes a few conversations.
So, Soumit, why does the gate agent always need to type so many things in the computer to actually give me my boarding pass? I feel like she sits there and she's typing. It's like the great American novel, and then all of a sudden, like, I get a boarding pass. Is that?
So that's very Meet the Parents. We have rolled out about 10,000. If you actually aggregate all our operational employees, every operational employee at United today, somebody who's actually moving a bag or serving you at the gate, at the lobby, the flight attendant, the pilot, every one of them has a mobile device, an iOS device. We rolled out mobile apps that allow agents to perform all the functions of the lobby just from their mobile device and using a Bluetooth printer. So we are making those investments, and I am hoping that you don't, at some point, have to actually check in, because we know you're there. And we know you're there not for any other reason but to fly. We do make some money from you in those airports. So if you can simplify some of those processes, I believe we can just really dramatically improve the process. A lot of travel is interweaving physical and digital, standing at a security line, immigration checks. I think there's a lot of work that's happening, foundational work that's happening around digital identities, biometrics, and so on, that can really simplify that process end to end. So hopefully, at one point in time, you can walk into an airport and get directly on the plane without having to stop.
Yeah. Well, I think all of you have kind of rightly hit on something here, which is the customer centricity, or putting the customer kind of as the foundation of the model, whether that's customer experience, it's customer consumption of content, or it's servicing the customer in that particular instant need. I'm curious, we've talked a little bit about the hurdles. Maybe if we could talk a little bit about, measuring success. Customer engagement is maybe not an easy thing, especially if it's, transaction for art pieces, right? And nobody's going to, none of the billionaires are going to fill out your, 17-question survey, I'm sure, at the end. Did you get good service? Did you like this? How do you measure that within Christie's? And then let's maybe kind of go around the horn.
So I think some of the metrics for our success on the digital front, that is, or just in general, just
I would say digital
how
front,
technology is enhancing things. So retention is a key metric for us, and how many people come back and engage again after that first transaction. So besides Christie selling $100 million paintings, we also sell, $1,000 pieces. So it's not quite eBay, but there's a volume there, and we try to maintain different levels, the core, if you will, which is between 5,000 and a certain dollar amount, let's say. So I think the metrics are retention. The mentions are obviously sales. The sentiment of the experience. There's a lot of critics in the art business that tend to poke holes at all the auction houses' digital attempts, like our AR, for instance, or Sotheby's does something. So there's a lot of visible soft ones, and there's some hard ones, I think. But the hard ones are definitely retention and ultimately sales.
But how do you do the measurement, I guess, or the attribution of that to digital versus the really good sales guy who has known that, billionaire art dealer for,
So
whatever?
engagement versus conversion.
Yeah.
It's a $1 million question for those digital marketeers out there. What's more important? Engagement is somewhat soft, so it's like marketing is for that matter. You can't really measure. When you run an ad in the newspaper, or you run a television commercial, you don't. In digital, you can get much more closer to the metrics and who's clicking, who are they, and then there's a conversion metric as well. So those are some of the metrics as well. We have a very extensive SEO, SEM digital marketing campaign, so we're targeting people not just on the Christie's website, but also outside of the website to bring the traffic to that. So I think digital helps facilitate a very metric-driven success.
Maybe more so than another fact. And I imagine, obviously for you guys, probably what used to be Nielsen, kind of did somebody watch a show versus like, actually, we know you downloaded and you're in the app and you're watching it right now and you stopped at this moment because of whatever it is. Are those the metrics? I mean,
I think from a consumer standpoint, yes, but ultimately, very simply, it comes down to either you're impacting the top line or the bottom line through engagement, through retention, through conversion. It has to hit one of those two. Everything else you're measuring in support of ultimately getting to one of those two parameters. I think from an enterprise internal transformation, we look at processes and figure out whether it is time, efficiency, reduction in cost, because that's a huge impact to the bottom line as well. By doing these transformation initiatives, are we making people's life easier, simpler, better, by really saving some hard dollars or time, and then reinvesting that into some of the other initiatives?
no.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in the business of connecting people.
And you get a little bit more chance of happiness, right?
Yeah, and I think, digital metrics aside, I think it's important for us to be safe. It's important for us to be caring, dependable, and efficient. Outside of that, purely the digital answer is what share of revenue is our digital properties bringing us? It's 48% right now. If we can increase that, that's great. Customer satisfaction is really important. Conversion is key. A 0.1% increase in conversion is tens of millions of dollars for us.
So we're going to wrap up in a second, but I want to hear one digital project that you guys want to do that you haven't actually put in place yet, something that's not quite out there. Maybe it didn't get funding. Maybe it's just a bad idea, but you wanted to do it. Just toss it out there.
Sure, I'll start blockchain. I think it is a significant disintermediation play for the travel industry. Dramatically could improve our financial settlement as well. So we are very interested.
Cool.
So we're going to be hosting a blockchain art and technology conference in London in July.
Interesting.
So a plug if anybody wants to buy tickets. I think Christie's TVOS channel, not just what Sotheby's did as far as just being able to look at lots, but something much more interactive and much more experiential than that.
So
Coming
more
from
like
Disney, I think I can apply some of that media
Home
experience.
shopping network for
A luxury
billionaires.
brand, lifestyles, just
cool.
24/7 of just
Great.
that.
I would say for me, it's around content supply chain and how sort of transformation can come in there. And what I mean by supply chain is really all the processes that happen in-house for us before you all consume the content. Because I think in terms of compliance, in terms of customization, localization, even coming up with smarter, better content, I think we have a lot of work ahead of us to do that.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to seeing all of these things happen, and thank you very much for taking some time.
Thank you.